Hi, friends. So, my presentation is titled Policing Theoretical Implications and Practical Solutions, an analysis of theories and their relationships to the foundational pillars of public administration, which guide peace officers in the performance of their duties. Basically, in a nutshell, I'm going to be going over how certain theories which are relevant to my profession are correlated to the pillars that we discussed in class and what that actually entails during the practical application of my job. So the first theory, which is very well known within law enforcement, is the broken window theory. Basically, in a nutshell, what that means is that visible signs of disorder or neglect can facilitate additional and even more severe acts of crime, disorder, and neglect if they are not quickly addressed. In other words, smaller issues can become larger issues when nothing is done to address the smaller issues when they're immediately noticed. The reason why broken window theory is very prevalent with my job is the fact of its close relationship with efficiency and effectiveness. Basically, when crime is afoot or something has occurred within the community and the police give off this perception of not doing anything about it, and that problem becomes worse or larger, then the efficiency and the effectiveness of law enforcement and the overall local government is questioned. When these things are not effectively addressed, more time, money, and resources must be dedicated to alleviate the negative impacts that have been caused. This can be an issue because when we're not addressing issues, whether they be criminal or even civil, this can damage the perceived efficiency and the effectiveness of law enforcement or the local police department or the administration that dictates how it operates. I have seen this personally when it comes to, for example, graffiti within a neighborhood. You see one mark, and then a week later, because we didn't have time to get to it, we saw a bunch of it. So that's another issue that really has to be taken into consideration. The next theory is the theory of enforcement. Basically, the theory of enforcement is based on the assumption that rational people can consider the costs and benefits of breaking the law when they decide how to behave. And it also brings into the other issue of how is the law actually enforced? In regards to the accountability pillar, spirit of the law and letter of the law is one of the central themes when it comes to my job. The letter of the law may say something else, and people may try to challenge that, but I have to respond by enforcing the spirit of the law and holding people accountable in the most proper fashion, in a way that's the most appropriate. Now, when I make this consideration and I make a decision, that comes down to, as a law enforcement officer, taking into consideration the totality of circumstances surrounding that person and deciding what is the most appropriate course of action here. How is the theory of enforcement related to accountability when I make my decision? The third theory is normative police legitimacy theory. And unsurprisingly, it's directly correlated to the legitimacy pillar. In a nutshell, normative police legitimacy theory basically means that when the police and the government is viewed as legitimate, citizens are much more likely to cooperate with the police while conducting investigations and also contribute to the efforts of the government and its own endeavors, whether it be some kind of community outreach or urban planning, anything like that. So when it comes to the actual application of legitimacy in connection to normative police legitimacy theory within my job, the more legitimate I come off to a citizen, the more likely they're going to help me. There have been times where I was conducting an investigation, and I would not have been able to solve the case unless somebody spoke up, unless somebody in the community actually reached out to me and had enough respect for me to provide me some kind of information. And because of that, I was able to solve the case. That's happened numerous times. But if citizens don't have faith in their local police or local government, then based on my personal experience while actually trying to apply this in the real world, they are much less likely to actually reach out and make that effort. So, in the grand scheme of things, normative police legitimacy theory and the legitimacy pillar, when taken into deep consideration and implemented effectively and properly understood, make for a better overall police force and a better police officer because it helps us actually solve crimes. Representative bureaucracy theory, in a nutshell, is basically that in order to have an effective government, those working within the government have to be representative of the people that they serve. That provides some kind of connection. And even though the definition here it talks about race, ethnicity, sex, those are all very good things to keep in mind. But in my personal opinion, when I actually try to apply this theory consciously or subconsciously, I find that it's representing a certain skill or ability that tends to yield the best connection. So, for example, I work in the city of Fontana for Fontana Police Department. 80% of our population is Hispanic, and obviously I'm very white. However, I speak Spanish fluently. And because of that, I was able to gain a lot of different connections with the people that I was serving. They actually wanted to talk to me. They wanted to converse with me. They wanted to help me. They just wanted that connection because due to the fact, as soon as they found out that I spoke Spanish, they realized that I actually, somebody who's not associated with their culture, actually put the time and effort into learning a piece of them. And that has proven to be very valuable. I even met Hispanic people who spoke fluent English. But as soon as they found out that I also spoke Spanish, they were much more willing to actually talk to me and figure out what was going on and reach out. And those conversations happened in both English and Spanish. So just due to the fact that they knew that I learned a piece of them was huge. So in regards to the pillar of representation, when you actually apply this in the real world, in my opinion, it's more about learning a skill and making the effort because that carries a little bit more weight than just something that you're just born with. And then last one, conflict theory. Social conflict theory basically suggests that conflict is the result of laws being passed for political reasons that are not in the best interest of the people. During the course of my duties, I find that I am torn between enforcing the law the way that the government intends and enforcing it in a way that's going to benefit somebody personally. Because we all know that politicians have their own ulterior motives. They have their own personal motives for passing certain legislation. And deep down, I realize when it comes to equity and fairness, politicians and the government may not always have that in mind. So, in terms of practical application, it's up to me to make that determination. So, the pillars of public administration do have repeated relevance within law enforcement. And the 5 theories discussed are necessary to understand and be aware of during the actual practical application of these skills. And it is necessary to have all these things in mind when not only being a police officer, but also being a public servant. Thank you.